with Siobhan. I'm Siobhan Muir, and today we're going to make one of those recipes that you get sent in the mail. Back in the 90s, I think, or early aughts, I'd get recipes in the mail, like little random recipes. I'm not sure how I got on their list, but they sent me a bunch of recipes and I saved the ones that sounded interesting. So this one's from Pies, Cakes, and Tarts. Low fat. Sure, low fat. Absolutely. Anyway, we're gonna make strawberry shortcakes. And I tried this recipe out and I've tweaked it now because it didn't work the way I wanted it. It didn't taste great. It was kind of weird. So I thought we would do this, the tweaked recipe. So here's what you're going to need. 1.5 cups of all-purpose gluten-free flour, because of course we do gluten-free. This is just our thing. 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, just right here. You're going to need 3 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 cup of light cream or half and half, 3/4 cup, 1 pint of strawberries sliced, and then you're going to need, what they wanted is they wanted you to add, I think it said whipped topping. I don't do whipped topping. I just don't like the ingredients in it and I don't like the way it tastes. So what I will tell you is you need 1.5 cups of heavy cream, whipped. Added to that you need 1/4 teaspoon of cornstarch and 1 teaspoon of vanilla sugar. Trust me, this stuff is divine. I wasn't sure and then I added it. I'm like, whoa, that makes the cream a lot better. So while I cut the sugar in the cake itself, I added sugar to the cream and it's going to make it really delicious because we tried it and we fixed it. So the first thing you're going to need to do is probably cut up your strawberries. You want them sliced because you're going to need them to kind of put them around. The other thing you're going to need to do is you need to whip your cream. Just do it first. Then by the time you're done with everything else, you will have it ready to go. We can show you how to build the cream, but you want it all ready to go by the time this stuff comes out of the oven. So what we're going to do is we're going to build the cake. Once we do that, we'll show you how to build the cream. Okay, so you are going to need 1.5 cups of your gluten-free flour and just put it in here. Once you have all the dry ingredients together, I suggest you whisk them together. That's why I was giving you whisk. So 1.5 cups of that. You need 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 tablespoon, seems like a lot, but 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 3 tablespoons of unsweetened cocoa powder. And this is just for the cake. 2, 3. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We use plain salt. Some people like iodized salt. I prefer just plain salt. You can use sea salt if you prefer. This is the dry ingredients that you're going to mix together. Just whisk gently. You don't have to go, crazy with it, but just whisk it gently until it's all kind of a uniform color. That's a uniform color. So that's now what you're going to do is you're going to add one of the liquid ingredients. You're going to add your 3/4 cup of light cream. And you will slowly mix it until it's entirely absorbed. So this is the light cream or the half and half, whichever works best for you. So, and that's when you start mixing all of this together. And at first it's going to seem kind of soupy and stuff like this. It won't be. You are going to have to work it a little bit. When you initially look at it, you're like, oh, that's not going to all mix together. It will. You just have to work it a little. All right, it's going to look a little sandy. Kind of an odd texture. Like, seriously, that's your cake? Really? Trust me, it works. With this particular gluten-free dough, you really aren't going to need the floured surface they talk about. I promise, it's not really going to stick to things. But you do want a clean surface for working on that is not necessarily this. All right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take your dough and you're going to gently put it on your workspace. And what you're going to do with this thing is you're going to says lightly grease a baking sheet, and to prepare your baking sheet, we're going to use parchment paper, but you can lightly grease a cooking sheet or baking sheet. Knead dough on a lightly floured surface for about a minute. You could do that if you wanted to. I think the big thing is they want you to kind of keep it together, and that's okay. Like I said, it's got a weird texture, and you'll be like, is this gonna work? It is. It is kind of sandy though.
Play with it, build a castle out of it.
You could. You could build a castle out of it. Now, most people will be making this out of regular flour, but even with the gluten-free, kind of kneading it gently, it works really well. And then it says, pat dough into a 3/4 of an inch, or about 2 centimeter thick rectangle, is what they said. Yeah. So what I do is just kind of very exciting. So you do want it thick though. The key here is you do want it pretty thick. We tried doing it at a 1/2 inch, which is 1.5 centimeters. It didn't work quite right. We want it thicker than that. Then you're going to take your handy dandy cookie cutter, which is just really a mason jar lid, and you're going to cut cakes. And save the excess dough, because it'll put my fingernail underneath it. These are going to be interesting. All right. Now they will expand. So I know they look really small right now, but they will expand, I promise. And notice, do you notice it is very thick? That is, you're supposed to do that. So I know it looks like it's incredibly thick. No. This is what you're supposed to do. The nice thing is there won't be much left over. What do you think? Good? All right. So now what you're going to do is take these things and let them just kind of hang out there, and you're going to bake them. Oh, sorry. Preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, I'm not even going to make the conversion because he'll write it on the screen and then you'll know. But set your oven to that, and then you're going to bake for about 15 minutes at that temperature until your cakes are done. While they are baking, we'll show you what we're doing with the cream. Okay. Because I don't like Cool Whip or those whip toppings, even the ones that are gluten-free and all and organic and vegan, I don't like, they don't taste good to me. So what I'm doing is I'm making my own. And what that comprises of is you want to have your heavy cream, right? Then you're going to add a little bit, because you want it to stiffen up and you want it to stay stiff. And sometimes over time, the cream breaks down and becomes watery. You don't want to do that. So what I've learned is you just need a very little bit of cornstarch. That'll help stiffen it up. I did learn recently that cream of tartar is really good for the same thing, but I've never tried it. It's according to that, it helps eggs stiffen up to be meringue. That suggests to me that it might help stiffen the cream. Because I don't know, I will have to test that out at some other time. So you're going to need about that much. That's not even a full 1/4 teaspoon of cornstarch. And you put it in your cream. Any more than that, you're going to start tasting it. You don't want that. But what you do want is you want a heaping teaspoon of vanilla sugar. This fancy vanilla sugar, it has been made by Penzi Spices, and I'm convinced I'll buy another to use it. Absolutely. So add that to your cream, and then you're just gonna beat the daylights out of it, and that's what I'm gonna do. And do it on high, and make sure your bowl is already cold. All right, so make sure you have a bigger bowl. However, you saw how quickly it stiffened up. That's a combination of the cornstarch and the cold. We're gonna do a little bit of cleanup and then we'll be back. Nice. It smells pretty good too. It smells kind of like cake. Now you're going to want these to completely cool, otherwise all the stuff that you put on them will melt. And that's not really quite what the presentation you'd like to give. So you'll definitely need to let them cool. As you can tell, they have expanded. I was hoping they'd be a little thicker, but when they cool, cut them in half this way, and then you'll start building your shortcakes. So, yeah, I was a little worried they were going to be really flat, but they look pretty good. So we'll show you what they look like when they're cooled. Okay, so we've cleaned up and we've cooled down, and so what they suggest now is to cut these in half. And I would use a serrated knife and just gently cut them. They might fall apart. Don't worry, it's going to taste fine. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to put the strawberries, the way they construct it is you put your strawberries on first. And you can use as many or as few as you prefer. All right? Strawberries. And then you use quite a bit of cream. Ta-da! And then on top of that, you are supposed to gluten-free. It's gonna taste fine. Even if it looks a little weird, it's going to taste fine. And then put a little bit of dollop of cream on top. Pick the perfect strawberry. Ta-da! A shortcake. There you go. And there's enough to feed. Everybody gets one for 6 people. Or, you know, if it's just 2 of you, you each get 3. The point is, they're pretty easy to make, even gluten-free. They work pretty well, and the combination of flavors is good. So there you go. Ta-da! Shortcakes. I've always seen shortcakes as vanilla, not chocolate, so this was kind of a surprise to me, but turns out they taste pretty good. So thanks for joining us. Definitely ring the bell to know when there's new videos up. Subscribe to the channel, like and comment on this video, like and comment on other videos. Definitely let me know if you tried something different, if it stayed together better for you than it did for me. And definitely sign up for my Patreon, because Patreon is a great way to support authors. Why? Because you don't have to wade through any social media. No one's telling you what you can and cannot see. You're always going to get the goods. And it'll be monthly, and I actually post there pretty regularly. Also, you'll find out things there that you won't see in other social media sites. And there's different tiers that you can try. So if you're, you're on a tight budget, you could just do the $1 and you still get some goodies. So definitely sign up at patreon.com/Siobhan Muir, and it'll make my day. Thank you for joining us. Happy making, happy baking, happy eating, and happy reading. Bye.